The last train out of downtown Seattle smelled like rain and regret. Zara Johnson had maybe 15 minutes before her stop, and every bone in her body ached with the kind of exhaustion that sleep couldn't fix anymore. 68 hours straight, 4 back-to-back shifts. Her scrub still smelled like disinfectant and the emergency room, and her contacts felt like sandpaper against her eyes. She stumbled into the empty car, thanking God for the quiet. The city streaked past the windows, lights bleeding into wet darkness, the Space Needle standing guard somewhere in the distance. She didn't see the man sitting in the corner. Didn't notice the way his dark eyes tracked her movements like a predator calculating angles. Didn't register the danger. Welcome back, friends. This is Prince of Afro-Korean stories, where passion, danger, and impossible romance intersect. Please keep sharing your ideas for future episodes. And kindly like, share, and subscribe, and activate notifications so you never miss our latest content. Then drop a comment telling me your location, Seoul, Chicago, somewhere between. I want to know who's bold enough to hear what really happened. John Siwa had ridden this train for 6 years. Always the last car. Always alone. People who knew what he was never sat near him. This woman didn't know. Didn't see the warning signs in the expensive suit jacket, the unnaturally still posture, the black shirt button just enough to hide the ink that crawled up from his collarbone. Dragons and clouds, traditional Korean work that told stories she couldn't read. Her head tilted sideways. Gravity and exhaustion won. She fell against his shoulder like a stone dropping into water. He could have shifted. Could have let her head hit the window. Could have done what he always did, stayed untouchable, unreachable, alone in the ways that kept him breathing. He didn't move. And that choice, that single moment of weakness, would unravel everything. Siwa's first instinct was threat assessment. The woman slumped against him weighed maybe 125, completely unconscious from exhaustion. Scrubs meant medical professional. The badge clipped to her lanyard read Harborview Medical Center, Z. Johnson, RN. Night rotation explained why she'd passed out mid-commute. No rings, short nails, the smell of hospital soap and cocoa butter lotion. Not a threat. Just tired. His second thought was more dangerous. She's warm. He couldn't remember the last time someone had touched him without flinching. 3 years since anyone had come within arm's reach without either wanting something or fearing what he'd do to them. This woman knew nothing about him. Expected nothing. She just slept, trusting in the way only the truly exhausted can manage, completely unaware that the man she'd chosen as a pillow had greenlit 4 kills in the last 3 weeks alone. Siwa's jaw clenched. He should wake her up. Should move before this became something. Her phone buzzed against her thigh. The screen lit up with a message. Z, you breathing? Don't forget Marcus needs that payment Friday. Love you. Probably family. Marcus, probably a brother. Payment probably meant debt, the kind that kept people working themselves into the ground, riding empty trains at 3 in the morning, too wrecked to notice when they'd fallen asleep on a stranger. The automated voice announced her stop. Columbia City, 2 minutes. He still didn't move. At 90 seconds, her body started shifting, instinct trying to surface. At 60 seconds, her eyes opened. She blinked once, twice, then went completely rigid as she realized where her head had been resting. Oh my God. She jerked upright, heat flooding her face dark enough to see even in the dim train lighting. I am so sorry. I work nights and I must have I'm really sorry. Siwa turned his head slowly, giving her his full attention. Most people flinched when he did that. This woman, Zara, met his eyes straight on, embarrassment fighting with something that looked like genuine concern, like she was worried she'd inconvenienced him. "It's fine," he said. His voice came out lower than he'd intended, rusty from underuse. "It's really not fine. I literally passed out on a complete stranger." She grabbed her bag as the train slowed. "Thank you for not, shoving me off or calling me crazy or something." The doors hissed open. She moved toward them, then hesitated, looking back. "Are you good?" The question landed wrong, or maybe right, he couldn't tell. No one ever asked him that. "I'm fine." She nodded, unconvinced but accepting. "Okay. Well, thanks again." Then she was gone, disappearing onto the platform before the doors sealed shut between them. Siwa pulled out his phone and typed a message to Min. Background check. Zara Johnson, nurse, Harborview Medical. Nothing deep, just verification. The response came back immediately. "Boss, this isn't your style." Siwa stared at the text, then deleted the entire thread. Min was right. This wasn't his style. That was exactly the problem. For nights later, she was back. Same train, same time, same exhausted collapse into a seat. This time she spotted him right away, and something flickered across her face. Recognition, maybe surprise. "Oh, hey," she said, pausing before sitting 4 seats down. Respectable distance. Safe. "I promise I won't use you as a pillow this time." Siwa's mouth curved just slightly. Not quite a smile, but close enough that it felt unfamiliar on his face. "Didn't bother me. Still, boundaries and all that." She pulled out her phone, clearly planning to stay awake this time. Silence settled between them. Not uncomfortable, just there. After 3 stops, she spoke again without looking up from her phone. "Long night?" He could have lied. Could have said nothing. Something like that. "Yeah." She leaned her head back against the window, closing her eyes. "I know that feeling. Some nights are longer than others, you know." He did know. He'd read Min's report. Registered nurse, emergency department, 5 years at Harborview. Mother deceased from lupus complications, father MIA since she was 12, 1 younger brother. Student loan debt $72,000. Medical bills for her mother's treatment $38,000. Never married. Clean record. Nothing that explained why he couldn't stop thinking about how she'd felt against his shoulder. "What do you do?" she asked, eyes still closed. "Logistics." She smiled tiredly. "That's vague." "It's complicated. Most things are." She opened her eyes and looked at him directly. "Why logistics?" "Family business," he said, which was technically true. His father had built the organization from nothing, turned it into an empire that moved product across 3 countries. Siwa had just refined it, made it cleaner, more efficient, more deadly. "I get that. I'm a nurse because of my mom. She was sick for a long time. The nurses who took care of her, they made everything bearable when it shouldn't have been. I wanted to do that for someone else." There was no self-pity in her voice. Just fact. Siwa found himself wanting to know more about her brother, her debt, why someone who spent her life saving others looked so worn down. But the train was already slowing for her stop. She stood, shouldering her bag. "What's your name?" He shouldn't tell her. Shouldn't give her anything real that could connect back to him. "Siwa." "Zara." She smiled, genuine and warm despite the exhaustion carved into her features. "Maybe I'll see you around, Siwa." She was gone before he could respond, and Min's voice echoed in his head. "This isn't your style, boss." No, it wasn't. But he was already planning to take the same train tomorrow. It became routine. Neither of them acknowledged it as such. Every night, same train, same time. They sat together now, closer, not touching but sharing space in a way that felt natural. The conversations came easier. Small things at first. The weather, annoying things about the city, safe topics that revealed nothing important and everything that mattered. "You still with me? Comment below if you're feeling what I'm feeling right now, because this story is about to go somewhere none of us expected." Siwa learned she drank her coffee with cream and enough sugar to make it barely coffee anymore. That she hummed old R&B songs under her breath when she was thinking. That her brother Marcus was pre-law at UW, brilliant and determined, the reason she worked herself into the ground. She learned he was second-generation Korean American. That he never talked about his family beyond saying his father was gone. That he had an apartment in Capitol Hill he rarely slept in. What she didn't know was that he'd already dismantled a credit fraud ring that had been targeting hospital employees. That he'd rerouted 3 major shipments to avoid federal surveillance near her hospital. That he had a team watching her building every night since their 3rd conversation. Protection she never asked for. Danger she didn't know existed. "You're careful," she said one night, 5 weeks into their routine. Siwa's attention sharpened. "Careful how?" "With words. Like you're always thinking 3 steps ahead before you say anything." She was watching the lights blur past, not looking at him. "I see it sometimes at work. Patients who've been through trauma. They measure everything, every word, every movement. You do that." His chest tightened. She saw too much, got too close to truths that could destroy this. "Maybe I've learned to think before I speak. Maybe." Her voice softened. "Or maybe you've seen things that taught you to be careful." The train swayed through a curve and she leaned into him slightly. Natural, unconscious. Her shoulder pressed against his arm. The contact lasted maybe 5 seconds. It felt like lightning. Siwa's control, the iron discipline that had kept him alive in a business that ate the careless, cracked. Just a fraction. Just enough. "Zara." She turned and suddenly their faces were too close. Her breath caught audibly. His eyes dropped to her mouth, full lips parted in surprise. He could smell cocoa butter and exhaustion, and underneath it something that was just her. The train announced her stop. Neither of them moved. "I should go," she whispered. "You should." She didn't. The doors opened. Closed. The train pulled away from Columbia City Station. "I just missed my stop," she said, but she didn't sound upset. "I noticed." Siwa. His name on her lips did something dangerous to his carefully maintained control. "What are we doing?" "Walking toward disaster. Inviting death. Choosing the one thing that will destroy everything I've built." "I don't know," he lied. Her hand moved slowly, questioning, until her fingers brushed against his where they rested on his knee. The touch was electric. Forbidden. Everything he couldn't afford. He should pull away. Should end this before it became something that could kill them both. Instead, he turned his hand over and laced his fingers through hers, and the universe punished him for it immediately. 3 nights later, Siwa spotted the dark sedan idling across from the train station. Wrong make for civilian use. Windows too tinted for legal limits. Position too deliberate for coincidence. Alexei Kozlov's crew. His blood went cold. They'd been watching. Calculating. Finding weaknesses in an organization known for having none. And they'd found her. Found the one thing that could break him. Siwa called Min before Zara appeared. Code red. Kozlov's people at Columbia City. Civilian exposure. Jesus Christ, boss. Min's voice was tight with tension. You need to cut contact now. Before she gets there. Zara emerged from the station entrance, messenger bag over her shoulder, completely oblivious to the predators cataloging her movements. Every instinct Siwa had screamed at him to abort, extract, disappear. His heart said something different. He met her at the platform entrance, moving faster than usual. Her smile faded when she saw his expression. What's wrong? Nothing. I have to leave early tonight. Confusion crossed her face. Oh. Okay, is everything? It's fine. I just can't do this anymore. The words came out harsher than he'd meant them. Designed to wound, to push her away, to save her life by breaking her heart. Her expression shuddered. Do what? This. Whatever this is. It was a mistake. The hurt in her eyes made something crack inside his chest. But hurt healed. Dead was permanent. I see. Her voice went flat. Professional. The nurse voice she probably used to deliver bad news. Well, thanks for being clear about it. She turned and walked away without looking back. Siwa watched until she disappeared into the crowd, then pulled out his phone. Min, I need full coverage on Zara Johnson. 24/7. No gaps. And find out everything about Kozlov's movements in the last 10 days. Boss, you're making this worse. You know that, right? I know. She's a civilian. If Kozlov thinks she matters to you. She doesn't, Siwa lied, and the words tasted like ashes. Zara didn't take the train for 6 days. Siwa knew because his security team reported every movement. She worked doubles, crashed at the hospital, avoided the train station completely. Smart. Self-protective. Exactly what she should do. It was killing him. On the 7th night, she appeared. Different route, earlier departure time, deliberate avoidance of their old schedule. She looked exhausted, deeper shadows under her eyes, tension in her shoulders that hadn't been there before. Siwa followed 4 cars behind. He'd become exactly what he'd sworn never to be. Obsessed. Compromised. Weak. The irony wasn't lost on him. 17 years of building an empire on calculated violence and emotional detachment, destroyed by a woman who'd fallen asleep on his shoulder on a train. He hadn't seen her since the night he'd pushed her away. The protection detail stayed invisible. Her life continued as if nothing had happened, except for the dark sedan that was always somewhere nearby, watching, protecting, ensuring Kozlov's people never got close. Rain started as she exited the station. Classic Seattle, sudden and thorough. She didn't have an umbrella. Didn't run. Just walked through it like she'd stopped caring about getting wet. He caught up with her at the intersection near her apartment building. Zara. She spun around, eyes wide, then narrowing when she recognized him. Are you serious right now? I need to talk to you. You said it was a mistake. I got the message. Now leave me alone. She turned away. He caught her wrist, gentle but firm enough that she couldn't just pull free. I lied. The rain soaked through his shirt, plastering fabric to skin. The tattoo on his chest was visible now through the wet material. Dragons and clouds, traditional work that marked him as something other than what she thought he was. She stared at the visible ink, then at his face. Why would you lie? Because being near me is dangerous. That's dramatic. It's true. Something in his voice must have convinced her because her anger shifted to concern. What kind of dangerous? What are you talking about? He couldn't tell her. Couldn't explain that men like Alexei Kozlov would use her, hurt her, kill her just to make a point. Couldn't admit that every moment they spent together painted a target on her back in blood. So instead, he did the most selfish thing he'd ever done. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. Wasn't tentative. It was months of restraint shattering, weeks of wanting, days of staying away, all collapsing into one moment of complete surrender. Her bag hit the wet pavement. Her hands fisted in his soaked shirt, pulling him closer even as rain poured over them both. She tasted like coffee and determination and everything he'd denied himself for years. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, her eyes were dark with confusion and desire. That, she said shakily, was not an explanation. I know. Siwa, what's really going on? He should tell her everything. Should warn her properly. Should give her the truth she deserved. Instead, he said, just be careful. Watch your surroundings. If you notice anyone following you, anything strange, call the police immediately. You're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. He stepped back, putting distance between them even though every instinct screamed to pull her close and never let go. Stay away from me, Zara. For your own safety. This time when she walked away, her steps were uncertain, and Siwa knew he'd just made everything infinitely worse. The signs started small. A car that didn't belong to any resident parked outside her building. The same face at the coffee shop 3 mornings in a row. Her apartment door not quite latched when she came home from her shift. Nothing missing, nothing touched, just open. Zara wasn't naive. She'd grown up in South Seattle, knew how to read danger, how to sense when something was off. Something was very off. She called the police twice. Both times they took statements and found nothing. Both times they suggested she was stressed, overworked, seeing patterns that weren't there. If this hooked you already, don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop a comment because what happens next will absolutely shatter your expectations. On the 9th night after Siwa's warning, she came home to find her door not just ajar but forced open. The lock broken. Splintered wood around the frame. Professional work. Her heart hammered as she pulled out her phone. She should run. Should call 911 immediately. Should not walk into her own apartment. She went in anyway. The apartment was dark. Silent. But occupied. She could feel it, that primal awareness that something predatory was waiting. Hello, Zara. The voice came from her living room. Accented. Cold. A man stepped into the hall light. Middle-aged, expensive coat, eyes like a shark. 2 more men materialized behind him. My name is Alexei Kozlov, he continued pleasantly. And we need to discuss John Siwa. Zara's ER training kicked in. The same calm that helped her stabilize trauma patients steadied her voice now. I don't know who that is. Kozlov smiled. Please don't insult my intelligence. You've been meeting him nightly for weeks. Train platforms, coffee shops. Last week, kissing in the rain like a romance film. Very touching. He moved closer. Very stupid. Her mind raced. These men knew about Siwa. Knew about their meetings. Which meant whatever danger Siwa had warned her about was standing in her living room right now. What do you want? Nothing from you, dear. You're simply leverage. Siwa has something of mine. A distribution route. Very valuable. Very non-negotiable. He'll return it, or, Kozlov gestured casually at her. Well, you understand. You're insane. I'm calling the police. She moved for her phone. One of Kozlov's men crossed the distance faster than she could process, grabbing her wrist hard enough to bruise. I don't think so. Zara did exactly what any ER nurse would do when grabbed by an aggressive patient. She fought. Her knee came up hard and fast. The man cursed, his grip loosening. She twisted free, grabbed the heavy bookend from the shelf, swung it with everything she had. The bookend connected with his temple. He stumbled. Zara screamed. Not from fear but from fury, from absolute refusal to be a victim in her own home. The front door exploded inward. Siwa appeared like something from a nightmare, or a prayer, depending on your perspective. But this wasn't the measured man from the train. This was something else entirely. Violence made flesh. He moved with terrifying precision. The first man went down before Zara even registered what happened. A strike to the throat, another to the solar plexus. Unconscious before he hit her floor. The second man pulled a knife. Siwa was faster. The blade clattered across the floor. Bone cracked audibly. The man screamed. Siwa didn't stop. Didn't hesitate. Didn't show an ounce of mercy. Just cold, efficient, brutal elimination of threats. Kozlov backed toward the window. You're making a mistake, John. She's just a nurse. Not worth starting a war over. Siwa's voice was unrecognizable. Raw. Dangerous. Absolutely lethal. Touch her again and I'll burn your entire operation to ash. Every route, every warehouse, every person on your payroll. I'll erase you so completely your own mother won't remember your face. For a woman? Kozlov laughed, but it was shaky. You've gone soft. No. Siwa stepped forward, and even Zara felt the menace radiating off him. I've found something worth protecting. Now get out before I change my mind about letting you breathe. Kozlov fled. His men followed, one limping, one being dragged. Silence crashed down like a physical weight. Siwa turned slowly to face Zara. His shirt was torn, revealing more of that dragon tattoo that covered his chest and shoulder. Blood spattered his face and neck. Not his own. His dark eyes were still cold, still locked in whatever violence mode he'd entered. Then he saw her expression, and everything in him seemed to crumble. Zara. She took a step back. Who are you? I can explain. You just broke into my apartment and put 3 men in the hospital. Her voice shook. You threatened to burn down someone's entire operation. She stared at the unconscious man on her floor. Oh my God. What are you? I'm someone who should never have gotten close to you. He took a careful step forward. She took one back. His jaw tightened. I knew this would happen. I tried to stay away. You're a criminal. It wasn't a question. The realization settled over her like ice water. Every warning sign she'd ignored. Every strange comment. Every moment of controlled violence she'd sensed but dismissed. Yes. The single word carried no justification. No excuses. Just truth. What do you do? Her voice barely worked. What kind of criminal are you? Siwa met her eyes directly. The kind you read about and hope aren't real. Logistics was true, just not legal logistics. I run an organization that moves product across international borders. Drugs. Weapons. Information. Things people pay extremely well to have transported quietly. Zara's stomach twisted. People? Do you move people? Not anymore. I shut down that division 4 years ago. Oh, well, thank God you have standards, she said, voice breaking on something between laughter and tears. I've been sitting next to a human trafficker on the train. I kissed. I know what I am. His voice was rough. I've known since the first night. That's why I never should have spoken to you. Never touched you. Never, he stopped, jaw working. But I did. And now Kozlov knows you matter, which means you'll never be safe unless I fix this. The words hung between them, heavy with implications Zara didn't want to understand. So what happens now? Now I fix it. Siwa pulled out his phone. Min, send extraction to Columbia City address. Full package. New identity if she wants it. Protection detail indefinitely. Financial security. What? No. Zara found her voice. You don't get to do that. You don't get to upend my entire life because... Because I what? The words came out harsh. Raw. Because I made the mistake of caring about someone for the first time in 17 years? Because I let someone get close enough to be used against me? Because I chose you over everything I built? The confession hit like a physical blow. I didn't ask for that, she whispered. I know. That's what made it so easy. Siwa's team arrived within 12 minutes. Efficient. Silent. Professional. They swept the apartment, removed the unconscious man, replaced the broken door, erased every trace that violence had occurred here. Zara watched from the corner, numb. One of them approached her. Korean, around Siwa's age, with sharp eyes and a kind face. I'm Min. I've been assigned to explain your options. I don't want options. I want yesterday back. I understand, but yesterday's gone. He gestured to the couch. Can we sit? She sat automatically. Alexei Kozlov doesn't forget. Doesn't forgive. Right now, you're marked as John Siwa's weakness. That makes you a target for every rival organization from here to Vancouver. So I need to disappear. That's one option. New identity, new city, new life. We can make you vanish completely. You'd be safe, but what about Marcus? My brother? He'd be told you died. It's the only way to keep him safe too. Zara's chest constricted. What's the other option? Min glanced toward where Siwa stood by the window, deliberately giving them space. The boss eliminates Kozlov completely. Takes out every threat. Makes it crystal clear that touching you means death. Then you decide if you want to stay in Seattle with permanent protection or leave anyway. And if I choose neither? If I just want my life back? You'd be dead within a week. The blunt assessment shouldn't have surprised her. Nothing tonight made sense. I need time to think. You have until sunrise. After that, the boss needs to move against Kozlov or risk full-scale war. Min left. The team finished and filed out quietly. Eventually, only Siwa remained. He turned from the window slowly. I'm sorry. For which part? Lying? Putting me in danger? Breaking into my home? Or making me fall for someone who doesn't exist? He exists. Siwa's voice was quiet. The man on the train was real. Everything I told you was true. I just left out the parts that would have made you run. You should have let me run. I know. Zara stood, exhaustion and adrenaline and heartbreak all fighting for dominance inside her. I've spent 5 years saving lives. Every shift, every patient, every desperate family in that ER. I chose to help people. That's who I am. She met his eyes. Who are you, Siwa? Really? He was silent for a long moment. Then, I'm someone who was born into this and never figured out how to leave. My father built an empire on violence, and I inherited it. I've killed people. Destroyed families. Done things that would make you sick. He paused. But when I met you, I remembered what it felt like to be human. To want something other than power and control. You made me remember who I was before all this. And who was that? Someone who wanted to be better. His voice cracked slightly. Someone who thought he still had a choice. The admission hung between them, raw and devastating. Zara moved toward the door. I need you to leave. Zara, please. I need to think and I can't do that with you here. He nodded stiffly, walked to the door, paused with his hand on the frame. Whatever you choose, I'll make sure you're safe. That's not negotiable. He looked back at her one final time. But the rest, I meant what I said. You deserved better than this. Better than me. Then he was gone. If you're still here, subscribe, because stories like this only work when people stay. Zara collapsed onto the couch and cried for the first time all night. Not from fear. From the terrible realization that despite everything, the violence, the lies, the danger, part of her still wanted him. The worst part was knowing he'd seen it in her eyes. The Seattle Times ran a brief article buried in the Metro section 3 months later. Russian businessman Alexei Kozlov found dead in shipping container fire. Authorities investigating possible gang violence. No one connected it to the systematic dismantling of his organization over the previous weeks. No one noticed how his associates vanished one by one. No one questioned why certain distribution routes suddenly changed hands. Zara read the article twice. She'd chosen to stay. Not because of fear, Min's protection detail was discreet but thorough. She stayed because running would mean Marcus lost his sister. Her patients lost their nurse. She'd lose the life she built through sheer will and sacrifice. And maybe, she admitted around week 10, she stayed because leaving meant never knowing if the man on the train had been real. She hadn't seen Siwa since that night. The protection stayed invisible. Her door was fixed. Her life continued as if none of it had happened, except for the dark sedan always parked somewhere nearby, watching, protecting. Tonight she took the train home from a double shift. Same route, same time, same bone-deep exhaustion. The car was empty except for one person. Siwa sat in their old spot, black shirt buttoned low enough to show the edge of his dragon tattoo. He looked different. Older somehow. More tired. But his eyes found hers immediately, and the recognition was instant, electric, undeniable. Zara's breath caught. She should keep walking. Should take a different car. Should protect herself from making the same mistake twice. She sat down next to him. Hi, she said quietly. Hi. Silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, just waiting with everything unsaid. I read about Kozlov, she finally said. Good riddance. Did you? Yes. The single word should have horrified her. Should have sent her running. Instead, she felt only relief that the threat was gone. Why are you here, Siwa? He turned to face her fully. Because I've spent 4 months making sure you'd never be in danger again. I've restructured everything. Changed routes. Eliminated threats. Built walls around you. He paused. And now I'm here to offer you a real choice this time. What choice? I can disappear completely. You'll never see me again. Protection stays, but I'm gone from your life forever. His voice roughened. Or I stay on your terms, at your pace, with complete honesty about what I am and what that means. No lies. No illusions. Just the truth and the knowledge that being with me will always carry some risk. Zara's heart hammered. That's not fair. You can't just show up and... You belong to me. The words stopped her cold. Not possessive. Not controlling. Just stated, like a fact he'd been carrying for months. That's not how it works, she said, but her voice shook. I know. But it doesn't make it less true. He leaned closer and she could smell him, familiar and dangerous and devastatingly real. And I belong to you. Have since the night you fell asleep on my shoulder. That's the problem. I can't turn it off. Can't walk away. Can't stop making sure you're safe even when you should hate me for it. I don't hate you. You should. I know. She closed her eyes. God, I really should. When she opened them, he was watching her with an expression that broke something inside her. Hope and desperation and the terrible vulnerability of someone who'd never learned how to ask for what they wanted. If I choose you, she said slowly, I need rules. Real ones. I don't live in your world. We don't appear in public together. You don't involve me in your business ever. And if it gets too dangerous, if I say I'm done, you let me go completely. Agreed. And you have to try to be better. I'm not asking you to become a saint, but I need to know you're trying. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, like no one had ever asked that of him before. I don't know if I can be what you need, he admitted. I don't know if you can either. But I need you to try. The train announced her stop. This time they both stood. Come home with me, she said. Not a question. Not quite a demand. Just an invitation. Siwa took her hand, the same careful, deliberate touch from months ago. Are you sure? No. But I'm choosing you anyway. They walked out together into the Seattle rain, and Zara knew with absolute certainty that this would never be normal, would never be safe, would never be the life she'd imagined. But it would be real. And sometimes real was better than safe. Marcus never understood why his sister's boyfriend never stayed over, why they never posted photos together, why Zara kept that part of her life carefully separate. But he liked Siwa anyway. The quiet man who'd somehow funded an anonymous scholarship that covered Marcus's last year of law school. Who'd helped Zara pay off her medical debt through some mysterious investment opportunity. Who looked at his sister like she was the only person in the world that mattered. He's intense, Marcus said one morning over coffee. Zara smiled into her cup. Yeah, he is. But he makes you happy. It wasn't quite happiness. More like peace inside chaos. Safety inside danger. Love with conditions they both understood but never spoke aloud. Yeah, she said again. He does. That night, she took the train home as usual. Siwa was waiting in their spot, always there, always watching for threats, always making sure she arrived safely. "Hey," she said, sliding in next to him. "Hey." He pulled her close, and she let herself lean into his shoulder, exactly where this had all started. Outside, rain streaked the windows, blurring the city lights into abstract art. The familiar rocking of the train, the warmth of his body, the steady rhythm of his breathing, all of it anchored her, reminded her that she'd chosen this, chosen him, chosen the complicated, dangerous, impossible reality of loving a man who lived in shadows. "I love you," she said quietly. Siwa's arm tightened around her. "I know. That's the terrifying part." "Why terrifying?" "Because I love you too, and I'm not supposed to be capable of that." Zara smiled against his shoulder. "Too late now." "Yeah." He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "Too late." The train carried them through the night, two people who shouldn't have worked, who defied every rule, who chose each other anyway despite all the reasons they shouldn't. And somehow, against all odds, they made it work. Not perfectly. Not safely. Not in any way that made sense to the outside world. But it was theirs, and that was enough. We've reached the conclusion of our compelling African-Korean story. If this story moved you, smash that like button so hard it breaks and subscribe for more incredible true stories that prove love can heal the deepest wounds. Share this story with someone if you believe in second chances. But I absolutely cannot make it happen without your support. Your support means everything to me. If you made it all the way to the end, you are an absolute legend. Drop a comment below telling us what will you do if you fell for someone dangerous. I read every single one. Let us know. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.